inMotion has been relatively quiet for the past year with the delayed launch of the V13 and the removal of the popular ex-CEO slash #1 EUC enthusiast Bob Yen. It is a bit unclear where they're heading to as a company. Then came the explosive leak a few weeks ago on their 2024 electric unicycle wheel lineup with an astounding rumor, 8 wheels planned for this year. A brand new E-Series and the mysterious V13. They decide to skip 5-whole number for this wheel. This week, me and Ronan talk about all the rumors and speculations swirling around inMotion and what it all means to the greater EUC world, and a quick preview of the ETMax. All right, here we go. It's the second of the, I don't know what to call it, EUC chat thing that I haven't come up with a name for. First of all, let's start with a shout out. Shout out to Jason, since he sent me the ETMax for a review, and it's been complicated, shall we say, but we'll get to that in a little bit. And then also I wanna give San here at iRide a quick shout out as well. It is Sunday morning at 10 a.m. and we drag San out of his comfortable bed away from his family to make him come and open up shop just so that we can come here and do the recording. So definitely huge kudos to San for helping out with providing a venue. And also he has an awesome shop here in New York City. He does a lot of repairs and he also does sales as well. So if you have any electric scooter, oh my God, our EUC needs.
He has a lot of scooters as well.
Yeah, he's a good guy to hit up. So let's start with our first segment. What wheel are we riding this week? All-Star. I'm riding the ETMax. I just got this like a few days ago, and honestly, unfortunately, I have had some problem with it. The tube was not seated correctly, so I had to do some work to get it in place. I had to replace the Velcro and everything, so it's a little bit annoying. I haven't really actually truly rode this wheel just yet, so it's still very fresh. It is heavy, so definitely something that is very different from its main competitor, the Lynx. The suspension is not as good as the Lynx. This is the other. I think we kind of all knew this was going to happen.
We expected it, yeah.
It's a coil, so it kind of it's very bouncy.
Yeah.
Like it's just like when you ride it, you hit a bump, like you get like a spring. I think there's a little air chamber also in the back that you can fill.
Because it's the latest version of the AirShock from Bigot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you have to like play with the settings and...
I haven't done that, so that's the other thing. It's going to take me a little bit to kind of get used to it.
You just got it like yesterday, right?
I got it on Friday. Okay. Then I just been like obsessively trying to make sure that it's set up correctly. The stock pad is actually decent. Like this is...
Yeah, they look nice.
They look nice, and at least for me, work a little bit better than the stock pads I've gotten from Bigot in the past. Yeah. I suspect that I'm probably going to still replace it as soon as I'm done with the shoot.
I mean, it's a progress, like versus like what we used to get before.
Yeah.
I just feel there's not enough space for these big pads, but
ergonomically, I think it's been like pretty good, and you rode it a little bit also, and you liked it, right? 2
minutes just to have a feeling. Yeah. So far, so good, to be honest.
All right, so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're riding?
So I'm riding the Commander Pro 50S, which is basically a Commander Pro merged with an EX30. I just received it like a few weeks ago. The weather was not that great, so I could not push it to its limit. But if you know the Commander Pro, you will like this wheel. It's an upgrade, definitely. It has a wider rim. The one from a C40 motor, and it has the hydraulic suspension. The rear bumper are different, and the trolley also is bigger. So far, it's the same as on the Commander GT Pro.
So it's a C40 motor paired with a Commander Pro. Battery size, suspension, everything else is the same?
It's the same, except you have 50S batteries. So sag-wise, it's an upgrade. Because the 50S batteries are like the new trendy thing. in the EUC world right now. You know, everything 50S these days. Yeah, so far I think it's a very heavy wheel, but very powerful. I mean, if you like the EX30, you won't be disappointed, basically. I gotta ride this wheel more, and I will produce a review soon, basically.
So in some way, this is kind of like an EX30, except it has hydraulic shocks.
An EX30 with hydraulic shock and shell, basically. I mean, I prefer wheels with shells, so for me it's an upgrade. I don't like to put all this plastic like cover that change the design of the wheel. So if you have a shell, you don't need that. You just need your pads, and that's it.
Yeah, I like your self-print pads. I'm always trying to find like a pad that works for me.
Oh, really?
It's very like, the pads I use on Lynx that I really like didn't work on this.
Which ones?
I had the North pad. The Lynx is it's more responsive. And when I say that, I mean it's lighter. And I think also firmware-wise, it feels like it's more immediate. Versus this is like driving an SUV as compared to a Roadster. But it does have the advantage that it does feel more stable at speed.
It felt stable, I mean, I didn't push it, I just did 20 miles per hour, 25, because you have this tire issue that you're gonna fix soon. It felt very stable and powerful. And I also like that you can lower the pedals, but even then, at normal size, the normal level, it's still good. Still some stuff to be changed, like this trolley, for example.
Oh my God, the trolley handle.
I don't know what it's kind of. I think people are gonna just remove this and put after like some kind of mods. I can think of some mods you can have like to replace the whole thing.
And oh my God, this wheel. 110 pounds.
Let me try. I hope I'm not gonna break my back.
Right? How much does this weigh?
More or less the same, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, but at least the trolley is better. Like
no, this is lighter.
It's lighter?
This is lighter. This is like probably 95 or 100, right?
I'm like messing up the settings, but oh yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, let's keep moving onto the main topic itself.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's really nice.
All right, the next segment is EUC news. I'm gonna start by including the ETMax and the general confusion we still have between this wheel and the GT Pro. The GT Pro is still coming. I heard actually from Jason that the demo wheel is also coming as
still
well.
Coming? Yeah.
Yes,
There's one in California right now.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, in San Francisco.
Yeah, and then like I saw the free spin that
it was
that
insane,
Alien Ride did.
Yeah.
And with like 180 miles per hour, right?
200 even.
No, I thought it was like 220 for, was that in kilometers?
Yeah.
I think that was in kilometers, so it was like
you're
180 miles per hour. I mean, that wheel technically have the same motor and the same battery configuration and the same control. I don't know why it's so much faster.
I'm confused with the GT Pro. I don't understand. If you have an ETMax, why would you go the GT Pro? I mean, of course, it has a bigger free spin.
Why is it a faster free spin?
Yeah, I don't
understand this.
Is it like the programming or like? I don't know.
The ETMax, I think, is designed for racing. They include 100%. A road wheel.
I mean, that's what they want.
It should theoretically be the faster wheel, but it's not. So I'm still really just...
I feel like the GT Pro was supposed to be the faster wheel, and then Bigot came and decided, we want to be the faster, let's go with the ETMax, and now the ETMax has the priority over the GT Pro.
So then if that's the case, then the ETMax should have a faster free spin than the GT Pro, but that's not the case.
No, that's not the case, yeah.
So I don't know, really confused. We now have an idea of what all the wheels Bigot is going to release this year. There's also the Falcon, which sounds very promising. It's 100 volt, right?
100 volt, 14-inch tire wheel with suspension. So that's what's very interesting about that wheel. Because I think riders want something light, but the problem with the current light wheels is that they have no suspension, so it's horrible to ride. I mean, once you're used to suspension, it's hard to go back.
Nobody is going to like... The people that love electric unicycle are people who are usually into tech, who is usually into like, as much kind of technology as you can. If you ask them, you want suspension or not? Like 99% of the time, they're like, give me suspension. Why? Like, that just sound like a good idea.
I mean, if you go to some hardcore chats and forums, you still find here and there someone saying, oh, I don't like suspension, it's too heavy. So with the Falcon, you have like a lighter suspension, lighter wheel with suspension. To be honest, for me, it's the most interesting wheel as of now.
It is very interesting because I think the T4 was a surprising hit for Bigot, and it sold really well because it was a cheaper, lighter, smaller suspension-equipped wheel, and then basically, the Falcon is an even more extreme version of it. It almost looked like a M10-4, on suspension. So.
And if he can keep the price under control, this will be successful. That's my opinion, but let's see.
Yeah.
When is it ready? Do you know?
I think it's soon. In order for it to make it to summer of 2024, like the demo unit has to be shipping right now. Otherwise, it takes then, a few months to kind of ramp up production and everything. Right now is the time to actually send out demo wheels. And then there is also another rumor wheel that is not formally, announced, but the Blitz, which I have, according to my sources, and I don't have as good of a source that it would appear as a Wheel Good Time, but from what I heard, Law actually visited Bigot last year, and he was able to kind of get good report with the boss there, and then so the guy was just like, hey, you're a rider, what is it that you want? So apparently this is a wheel that was kind of designed per what Law had told them that he is looking for. The bits and pieces I have heard, which is that this is supposed to be like a lighter, more compact version of Master, I think. It's also 134 volt. The details are a little bit kind of lacking. The fact that it's lighter is definitely like a huge plus.
I got a question for you. It seems like it's a trend with Bigot to have to pick up a rider and ask him, which wheel do you want? What do you want? Last year it was the Chance with the Extreme. Now it's slow. So when are you getting your new wheel? And what would you be, what would you do?
So it's very weird, right? Everyone's going to think that I'm going to ask for the biggest, giant monster wheel that you can get. And I like that. Oh, yes. Give me a 22-inch suspension wheel that's at 200 volt and I'll ride it all day. I feel like that is something that I don't doubt that we're going to get anyway, because that's what everyone is building right now, bigger, faster wheel. But what I actually think that we're missing is something that is, ultra compact, durable, easy to use, easy to lift with wheel. The wheel that nobody's building that I really like is actually my IPS i5.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a 20-pound wheel that is the size of a laptop. I mean, I had people chase me down the street asking me what the thing is, because it doesn't look like it's possible that it could be a vehicle, but it is. And it fits in your backpack and everything. And I think it's 23 pounds, so you can't really just carry it in your backpack all day. You get tired, but it's so nice to be able to walk around with something that is
It's even lighter than the M10-4, basically.
It's smaller. It's the lightest. It's the lightest, most compact. It's like literally that thick, and that's it.
Wow.
With pedal folded and everything, and you just it's the size of a big laptop, and you just put it in your backpack, and you can walk around with it. Nobody should buy this wheel because the construction quality, the technology, everything is terrible. However, the form factor is just great. I wish, and it's 14-inch. It's a 14-inch electric unicycle that fits in your backpack. That's only 23 pounds. Those things in combination is something I think that would be really attractive, not just like EUC enthusiasts, but to the larger public, because it's a great urban transportation tool, I think.
Yeah.
If they asked me, I would say, hey, can you build something like that?
Next year, maybe.
So what about you? If they ask you, Ronan, what is it that you want? What wheel would you build?
I would ask them to bring back the Monster Pro.
The Monster
Magnesium
Pro.
shell.
Yeah.
Hydraulic suspension.
The Monster Pro.
The Monster Pro.
The
not the Master
suspension.
Pro. No, with suspension.
With suspension.
Hydraulic suspension on the Monster Pro.
Yeah.
With LED lights, a better trolley, and magnesium shell to keep the weight in check. I think that would be a great wheel.
I also want the original Monster in
you want the original
100 and because 22-inch wheels never have enough torque because of the size of the wheel. At higher voltage, if they do 168 volt.
168.
That wheel would be super torquey. And also the fact that it doesn't have a suspension means that it's smaller, lighter, and also it feels torquier because there's a more direct connection between your foot and the motor. They would never do it because they know that nobody wants to buy a non-suspension wheel, but I think it would be a great race wheel.
But if I were to design a wheel, I would focus on the smaller details that they forget all the time, like the trolley, the adjustable pedals, the lights, these small things, because each time they design this revolutionary wheel that is fantastic, great spec, and then the trolley sucks, and everything that is practical sucks. So if you want to go from point A to B on a daily basis, this thing matters.
Yeah.
It matters to have a light that doesn't blink all the time, or the pedal not too high. I feel like these small things help your daily lifestyle. So that's something also that I would focus.
But I think this is something that is fundamental to the culture of a company. It's like the difference between Android and Apple. Apple will always say, okay, there's this great piece of technology. Yeah. How is it relevant to like day-to-day life? I've been obsessively watching the Vision Pro coverage, all the YouTube review videos and everything, and all the YouTubers, they're like, why is this eye thing, like screen in front of your eyes, doesn't work very well. It seems to just be a waste of time. Like, why did they bother to do this? But in my mind, it's like that's then looking at it and recognize that the biggest barrier, whenever I have a Quest 3, whenever I put that on, watching content and everything, it always annoys my wife. Because she's just like, you're just in your own world. You're just doing your own thing. We're in the same room, but you're not. I can't even watch the thing you're watching.
Imagine you're with your wife and you're looking obsessively at your phone. It's already annoying.
Yeah.
Now you're masking. This is 10 times this. You know what I mean?
So it's a really important feature, and they always say, "Oh, this is intended just for someone else," which is not. No, it's not just for someone else because it makes you feel more comfortable wearing it. But. Yeah, I got completely sidetracked, but this is something that other company would just never think about because they would just be like, I want to build the thing that has the greatest technology. If it's a little bit awkward to use, that's all right. And I feel like that is Bigo. Bigo is just like that. And for you to say, oh, the trolley handle this and that, they just would never understand. Like they would just
they don't.
Why does it matter? I built you this super fast,
it just matters
wheel.
To jump or do stairs rather than using the trolley on the daily basis. So that's the
only time they will care if a company built a wheel that have some kind of feature that is especially useful and is sold a lot, then they will be like, oh, that's a good idea. There have been several ideas that trickled out. Even suspension is a new thing. And then there's the kickstand.
Yeah.
Like now they all have kickstand, but before that was like, oh, an inMotion thoughtful, thing that they include in their design. Speaking of which, let's get on with our main topic, inMotion. What is going on with inMotion? It's the big question. There has been a lot of rumors, speculations, and before this, I was actually watching. There's a video that Wheel Good Time made about all the problems that he said he saw with inMotion that he had heard.
And I saw online people didn't like it at all. People were like, this is just your speculation. inMotion is fantastic. It's a fantastic company. If you look at the EUC forum chat about this video, it's insane. People are really triggered.
Oh, really? inMotion as a company, I don't have any actual marketing data because nobody's willing to publish how much wheel that they actually sell. Since these are all private companies, there's no disclosure requirements. But from everything I've heard, inMotion, out of all the companies, sells the most electric unicycle. They're the lead. They're the largest company. So that means a bunch of things. That means they have more employees. They have more resources. That also could be the reason why all the negative things that perhaps you have heard. Because in a large company, you're going to have someone who's really not happy.
It's everywhere. Any company, even bigger. As a EC rider, is it important for you?
How many big evil corp there are? Right? Like there's Amazon, Apple has some bad rap also, like, they all use child labor supposedly in China or something, if you wanted to believe the naysayer. But I don't think there is a direct correlation. Of course, if a company is run so terribly that everyone is miserable, then the product will probably suffer. But at the same time, I follow video game news, and the video game companies are some of the worst places you can work. And they all work long hours. hours, they have no life, they're being crushed by the crunch culture.
Yeah, the people who worked on GTS 6, they had no life, they were sleeping at work. It's terrible.
You know, at the same time, they make great gains,
yeah.
You know, because they're passionate and everything. There isn't a direct correlation. Like, of course, you know, it'd be great if people love where they work and they enjoy and everything. But like, unfortunately, I don't think, you know, I see a direct correlation between like the quality and design and the product itself with, you know, what you hear trickle out of a company. That's just kind of my personal opinion. What we do know is that there has been a change with the CEO.
Yeah.
They have someone else come in, unfortunately, because I really like Bob. Bob was a really positive voice in the community. He was very involved. He like reached out to everyone and spoke to them. And he himself is definitely a huge enthusiast for EUC as well. The new CEO, I don't know so much. But again, do you have to love the product in order to build a good one? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if head of Bigot rides an electric unicycle. Like, he probably know how to, but I don't think he's like a, you know, like a fast rider or someone. Like, I don't know that. The other piece of news that we have also heard is a leak. I don't know. What was your initial reaction when you first saw this?
I mean, it's a wheel flood, basically. By inMotion, not Bigot this time. Usually we are used with Bigot announcing a lot of wheels per year, but now we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 new wheels this year, if I believe the leaks. So we have the V13 Pro, the V12 Pro, the E20, the E20S, the V18, E25, and P6. We have no specs, we have nothing.
This perhaps is something that they're contemplating. It may not be final.
For the V12 Pro and V13 Pro, we have some specs, which means that these leaks are like part of these leaks are true. So, but when I look at the V12 Pro and the V13 Pro specs, I'm like, did we need that? I don't know. Have you reviewed the specs of the wheels?
I've seen the spec, and they're basically evolution, you know, upgrade of those two wheels. V13 got a lot of attention when it was released because it was, you know, super fast. It has all these additional safety measures, and also in general, I feel like inMotion is one of the few wheel companies where their product feels like it's as premium. I mean, we're spending $3,000 to $4,000 on these things. When you show someone even a veteran wheel and say, how much do you think this is? Nobody would guess $4,000. It's just because it doesn't look like a $4,000 product. Versus inMotion wheels, they're much more streamlined. The design looks much more customized. It looks quality of the build, the fit and finishes, everything feels more appropriate. For the two upgrades, even though they're not huge upgrades, I feel like they're going to continue to produce these wheels. So
yeah, why not?
So they're basically, what they're doing is that they're just upgrading the spec so that whatever the current, it's like a car. Like this is a new model year.
It's so like the V10 and the V10F.
They started with the V11, and I think there was some good upgrade there. They lowered the pedal, they made it a little bit taller, they improved the suspension, like all like minor tweaks. If you have an existing V11, you probably wouldn't run out and buy the new V11Y, but if you're someone new coming into the market, you wouldn't want to buy a wheel that is 4 years old. It just feels old and outdated. So that's what the 2 Pro model would do, I think. It basically give you a refresh so you feel like you have something current, especially considering how much money you're spending. Yeah. Though it makes sense.
I must admit, it's maybe a smart move because you have like the V12 or the V13, and they can look outdated, obsolete, because every year we have new wheels. So now we have this phenomenon where last year's wheel is already obsolete and past. You want something, you always want the latest and greatest. So if you take your V12 or your V13, you just do minor tweaks. Now your wheel is updated, your wheel is new, fresh, and you can say, okay, I got a V12 Pro, you got something new. So maybe it's a smart move actually.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to me. The EUC rider in general are very tech oriented. You're just used to always look for the latest and the greatest. Everyone upgrade their phone like on a yearly basis. You all want the latest and greatest, so this kind of makes sense. But what is interesting is this whole new line of e-wheels.
Yeah.
I don't really know what, again, we don't have any information on exactly what these wheels are. The E20, E20S.
V18, you could potentially guess, I don't know, maybe it's a 18-inch tire wheel, I have no idea.
In the past, they never, like the V13 was a 22-inch wheel, and they never draw a parallel between the size of the tire. It's more like sequence. It's just one after another.
They have new naming convention now, like E20 and P6. So maybe they have new types of wheels. I don't know, one is more with a shell, one is more with hydraulic suspension. I have no idea. But it looks like this free naming convention means something.
It is very interesting, and also the fact that this list is as long as it is was also unexpected, because again, I don't have any marketing data, but it feels like the past year things, seems to have cooled a little bit in the EUC world. It may also be that we are in the middle of a bi-yearly release. I feel like every other year there are a lot of releases, and then the one in the middle, usually you only get a few. Like last year we only had the Patent, and then we had the Extreme. The Lynx is this year.
Yeah, it's this year, yes.
Yes, we had the 16-inch wheels, and the V14 was delayed. Like it was supposed to be last year, it didn't happen, and it got pushed to this year. That's the other thing. They're also doing a variant of the V14, and that's now.
Are you gonna review the V14?
I think Jason's going to send me the high-speed version. I don't know if there's a name for it right now. It's the black version.
Is it the black version?
It's the black version. It's supposed to be 10 kilometer per hour faster, and it has a different motor and everything. The existing one is capped at 70 or something, right? 70 kilometer per hour. I think it's like 43 miles per hour, which is really kind
underwhelming.
Yeah, it's underwhelming. It's 134 volt, right?
I forgot the voltage. Let me check.
Yeah, you can see how little we care when once we hear that top speed, we're like, we don't care about that.
I must be fair. The black version looks interesting to me. It's in my radar, but 134, yes.
Yeah, it's a 134 volt wheel, which is technically another jump.
Another extreme wheel, basically, inMotion version.
The speed cap is unfortunate, and then the newer black version is supposed to be a little bit faster.
The black version looks very beautiful to me. Like the black version, it has a street tire also, right? I don't know.
I'm definitely interested in trying it out. Suspension is a crucial part of an EUC performance. One of the main reasons why I like the Sherman so much, the Sherman S that is because of how well the suspension work on that. You can have the biggest motor you can possible fit on the thing, but unless you have perfect road, you can't really tap into it because you're just being bounced around.
Okay, so you have redone the Lynx and you have redone the Sherman S. Which suspension do you prefer between the two wheels? Because that's a question that comes back regularly. And I think that the Lynx has a progressive spring versus the Sherman S. So I would like to have your input on that. I'll give you mine after.
I didn't feel a huge difference between the two. I think with a progressive spring, it's probably a little bit stiffer on the very extreme end of compression. So if you do a jump, it wouldn't bond now as easily as the Sherman S. The Sherman S also have another 20 pounds, so it's a heavier wheel and it has a lot more mass. So when you're cruising along down the street, when it hits a pothole, it's smoother than the Lynx. But at the same time, it's not able to react as quickly as the Lynx. Like I did a whole bunch of off-road ride recently, and it's definitely, the suspension for the Lynx worked better than the Sherman S in that setting.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I felt the suspension of the Sherman S was smoother when I tried both. You had 62 on both sides of the wheels, and I felt like it was way smoother, so that's why I was surprised. Why is it smoother on the Sherman S versus the Lynx, considering the progressive suspension is supposed to be an upgrade? But that's just my feeling. But now I agree with you, maybe it's because of the weight of the wheel. The weight of the wheel has an impact on the suspension.
Yeah.
So definitely that's something to keep in mind. There are so many parts on EUCs that you have to keep in mind. Like I feel like I'm learning something every single time.
I feel like it's like a race car where there's so many different things that have, connection with one another. I've been told by a friend who's an engineer that you have to think of the entire electrical system as a system. Like you can't just say, I make the battery bigger, I'll make the motor bigger. Everything is paired with something else. The weight of the wheel, the suspension, how it works, the style of suspensions, the linkage, the angles, like all of that come into play. They each have their place, but I also have heard that the V14 V14 suspension is really great. So I'm kind of
good to hear.
really
Good to see.
look forward to trying that. So this is the thing that makes it a little bit tougher to do. inMotion never really had any particular, it's the wheel that define what its purpose are. There isn't a different line. Like there isn't a, commuter line versus a performance line.
But they tried that with the V14, like they flagged this wheel as a off-road wheel, basically.
Yes.
You remember, like all the footage is just off-roaders. You don't see a single commuter video. You just see off-roaders and that's it.
I also don't know whether or not they really, well, first of all, I don't think it's legal for you to ride on the street in Shenzhen anymore, which means that it's not that they didn't show footage of commute. You can't, because it's now not legal. That may be why that the only venue available for them to shoot is like these off-road trails in the park setting. So it may be that. Theoretically, if you want to design something more as a commuter wheels, you want things that's not as flashy, right? Like you don't want a lot of blinking lights. You don't want something, like you don't want something that looks out of place when you push it into an office. In that way, I guess I agree with you for the V13. I mean, the V14 looks more like a fun off-road toy.
I don't think that EUC makers should flag their wheel, give a very niche image to their EUCs. In my opinion, you can ride an EUC for any purpose. And I'm not gonna, that might trigger some people, but I'm just saying that an off-road wheel, I can just commute with it. Or I can do off-road with a commuter wheel, in a limited fashion, of course, but you can still do all these things. And when you target just one niche of riders, you exclude all the other riders. And that's why I feel like when you advertise a wheel, you should minimize this niche type of flagging of a wheel. That's why I'm a bit skeptical with when we say this wheel is a racing wheel. Okay, you say this wheel is a racing wheel, so who are you targeting? You are targeting the racers, basically. How many racers are there in the world?
Well, I disagree with that. I mean, how many people drive a Ferrari? I don't think they race.
Okay, but let me finish my explanation.
Right.
How many wheels do you think that a EUC maker needs to sell to be successful?
I think I actually heard like an interview with Bob, and he said that more or less, like I think if you sell 2,000, you're 3,000, you're okay. If you sell like 8, 9, 10,000, that is a hugely successful wheel, and that's from like the inMotion perspective, which means that companies like Veteran will probably never sell that many wheels. The market is still kind of small.
Got it. So 2,000 units to sell if you want to be successful.
Yes.
How many EUC racers do you have in the world? Roughly, I don't know. I'm gonna be optimistic and say 100.
Yeah.
Or 200.
There's not a lot.
Okay, not a lot. And then I'm gonna take the enthusiastic guys who want to have the latest and greatest. And feel like, okay, I like this racer, I want this racing wheel, or I want to have a racing wheel. Maybe 500 total. What about the daily commuter who doesn't go beyond 35 miles per hour? And then you present him a racing wheel, he's gonna be, no, it's not for me. You're gonna scare him off. I want something safe. If you say racing high speed, and don't get me wrong, I like that, But if you say racing high speed, then next thing you know, you're scaring off, you're excluding the rest of the UC riders.
Yeah, but I don't think people...
And that's what I'm feeling that is happening with the V14, for example. They flagged it as a off-roader wheel. Next thing you know, the daily commuter or Mr. Everybody who wants to get into the hobby is like, off-road is a bit too extreme for me. Maybe I should look at something else. Maybe not, but I feel like this phenomenon is kind of happening a bit. And I feel like, okay, if you are Bigod or inMotion, you have this new wheel, the ETMax, for example. Definitely it's a racing wheel, 100%. But then you should also say, oh, this wheel will bring you from point A to B safely. They are not talking to this mass of people. They're just saying it's a race wheel. Actually, they're saying nothing because I'm also confused in the message. They're saying it's a race wheel, but all I saw was off-road videos from Bigod.
Like safety is a very strange thing when it comes to EUC because this is something that inMotion love to emphasize. Early on, they had strict speed limits on all their wheels because this is safe. But at the same time, I feel like inherently,
whenever my neighbors see me roll by on an electric, they're like, oh my God, that is crazy. I could never do that.
Yeah,
That
he would
looks
say the same.
super dangerous.
He would say the same if you were riding the safest EUC ever, like the most low level, low profile, the V11, whatever. He would think the same.
It's almost like, snowboarding. Can you make a safe snowboard? You're riding down the side of a mountain. There's nothing that they can do to make it safe. Like they can cover you with a giant mattress and you probably still run into a tree and hurt yourself. So it's I feel like the sports inherently, it's hard for you to find a safe solution. You can early on, right? Like there was not enough power. The wheels was not capable enough to actually safely maintain speed that people were actually pushing for. People naturally push for like 30, 40 miles per hour because, at least in the US, that's the speed of traffic. Now that we have wheels that can easily do that kind of speed, I feel like it is less of a concern. Like people aren't worried as much about a wheel cutting out. So it's more than sufficient powerful for it. But aside from that, I don't know if there's a way for them to actually market safety. It's like motorcycle. There's no safe motorcycle.
Oh, you just need to say it. You just need to mention this is a safe wheel because blah, blah, blah. It's a safe wheel because it's a 168 volt wheel. Beefed up motherboard, all these things.
So like, imagine like if Volvo tried to make a motorcycle, right? Whatever CEO, the president would be like, "Are you crazy? This is Volvo. We make safe things. We don't make a motorcycle. There's nothing that make a motorcycle safe. It just would not." Like I feel like EUC by its nature is for people who have a much higher tolerance for risk
But look in the EUC forums, you have a lot of daily commuters who like complain about speed. These people exist.
I think there's a huge
they like
market.
inMotion. The mass likes inMotion.
Yeah,
so how to convince this guy to go to Liperkim or to Bigot? And I'm not a Bigot sales.
So
then if you say it's a racing wheel, they're gonna be like, I don't know.
So a car is a great example, right? Everyone wants to buy an SUV. And all they do is drive to the mall. Why do you need an SUV?
True.
Because they like the idea of like rugged wilderness. They're like, oh, if I buy this car a weekend, I'm gonna drive out to a national park and go rock crawling, which they obviously never do. but the company catered to that. It's aspirational, So
like the Cybertruck, for example.
Yeah, exactly. It's the idea of the thing that kind of excite you. So you can either be someone who's really into racing and then you go buy a soup up Honda and you lower it to the ground till you cannot drive it anymore.
I get your point.
Yeah, so that's a direction that make more sense. At least for me, from an electric unicycle perspective. But I mean, with the number of wheels, if this list does turn out to be true, I hope it is, because the more wheels there are, the more options we'll have. Also allow for more opportunity to experiment.
Yeah.
So they can try different things. So I don't know what the E or even the P series are supposed to be for. It could be that they said, okay, that one is going to be focusing on commuter, and then the other one is going to be focusing on like racing or something.
And they're saying they're going to produce this wheel very soon. Like the next one is in March, then April, July. Yes. I don't think no, that's not accurate.
They haven't done very much in the past year. The V13, concept design was done early last year. So they had a full year. And also the rumor had indicated that inMotion had received, additional funding from outside source.
Oh, really?
Well, Huawei was a name that was floated. I know.
Okay.
I operate on rumors, so none of these may actually be true.
Take this with a grain of salt, basically.
Right, take it with a grain of salt. And this is what happened to Ninebot. Like Ninebot was originally an electric unicycle company that make electric unicycle, and they make like Segway-like devices, self-balancing device, and then they got funding from Xiaomi, and then they pump millions of dollars into that company, and then they start building electric scooters, and then those end up selling like millions. And then they got out of the EUC company because of how small it is. But that was a different moment in time. That was 4 years ago when EUC is still young. What I'm hoping for is that with this list, it means that they have a much more bullish outlook of where all this will end up. There has been a lot of development over the past few years. There's now active racing event, in the country and all over the world, I think.
Yeah, in Spain. Spain is very active with the racing, and in China also they are racing.
Yeah, so it's all starting to collect momentum as the racing league grow and it gathers more attention. Right now, I feel like most of the footage and most of the thing I see out of these events are still pretty amateurish looking. Not that the people in there are fast and great. There isn't the big funding, there isn't the snazzy media production that you would see in a motorcycle. Even like bicycle racing gets a lot more coverage. But
you're gonna trigger a lot of people with that comparison.
Yeah, but I think that's where I like to see, right? To me, EUC racing is super interesting to watch and exciting because when you watch a car racing, the guy is inside a cup.
Yeah.
Like he looked like this, regardless of what he is actually doing. He could be accelerating, he could be turning, he looked like this. Motorcycle, a little bit more, you see people dragging their knees and that's really cool to watch. But with the electric unicycle, the racer, they have to really put their body behind the actual motion.
I watched the AVS race and they had a new way of introducing the racers with some interviews, and you had a soundtrack during the race. I liked it, to be honest. I felt it was a massive upgrade in terms of filming of EUC race, because realistically you take a EUC racer, it's just someone who looks like a stick and like racing or whatever. But the way they film with the drone and the soundtrack, and you can see that the fastest rider, their body position, you could see that something was happening. Especially actually the women race, it was the most interesting one. I felt
really?
Maribel, she had a position like this to race, and Dawn was chasing her. I was very, very interested in that race. I felt it was very exciting. So if they keep upgrading like this every year, I think it could be interesting, to be honest. It's just the start of the EUC racing.
To find that audience will take a little bit of time. I feel like
it takes time,
Yeah, these are things that build upon one another. There's also...
What would we need to get the mass interested in EUC racing, in your opinion? What would we need? Because, I was interested to watch this race, but I'm an EUC enthusiast. So that's why I was looking at that. But takes a random person, what would it take to race? To watch a race, basically. For example, I have no interest in Formula One. I don't drive Formula One. I have no interest. I've went to a Formula One race once. I felt it was okay. Why not? So how do you get people interested in EUC racing, considering it's a very niche type of event?
There's a few different paths. With Formula One racing, it's very simple. The car manufacturer has an interest in be the #1 fastest manufacturer of an F1 car. So they put a whole lot of sponsorship dollar behind it. From the very beginning, it has always been the case, because whoever Porsche, if they win a race, people assume that Porsche cars are the best or the fastest. So from there, money drives, better media coverage, drives ad, drives all these things to push the message out to the public. So that's a huge part of it. I mean, the other way that anything could become popularized is that we're in an influencer-driven world. If someone famous picked this up, last time when hoverboard got picked up, it was because of
is it Justin Bieber?
Yeah, Justin Bieber picked one up and was riding around, and then all of a sudden everyone's like, "Oh wow, I need this. I want one as well." So that's really a huge part of it. Also, but we'll have to see if something like that actually happened. I'm really bullish on the racing in general. The company now all have recognition that if they build a wheel that wins races consistently, if you go to AVS and all you see are just EX30, you're gonna say, "Oh, Bigot is the top performer."
It's already the case.
Yeah, that was the case last year. I'm curious
no one
to
was
know.
riding with Liperkim or inMotion. Oh yes, no, there was one guy on the V13.
Yeah. So when you say that, everyone's going to be like, "Oh, I guess EX30 is the fastest wheel there are." So and that is,
it is
could totally be driven by, look, man, if Veteran was sending out free wheels to all the racers, you're going to see them represented on the racetrack.
Yeah, but represented because they received a free wheel or because it's the fastest? Let's say, for example, let's say you're a racer and the fastest wheel is the EX30, for example.
Right.
And then I send you a S19.
Yeah.
Are you gonna race with the S19 because you got a free wheel?
Do I review wheels because Jason sent them to me, or do I? Or is it? I mean, in the end, right? You can't just one day and say, "Oh, I decided that I'm gonna race. I'm gonna reach out to veteran and be, I'm gonna be a racer. Send me a wheel." No, it doesn't work that way. You have to be someone who's already really into it, putting the time and the effort to learn and then place on top and so on. And then the next step is the company come and talk to you and say, hey, do you want to be a racer for a veteran? I don't think this has happened just yet. I don't think there's any official relationship between companies and people who ride. But at some point, if we ever get there, then it's just like, okay, you're a veteran rider, so you're going to be riding veteran wheels. Honestly, I don't know.
It's starting with the dealers. You have like the Alien Rides team, and now we have an e-wheels team. Did you know that?
Yeah, I have heard that they're team forming. Yeah, it makes sense. And then you can really answer the question, who is faster? And
Roger is faster.
but this matters, right? When people are out shopping for a wheel, it's one thing if they're looking for something that would get them around commuting to the office, back home, and what have you. It's another when you're dropping $4,000.
Again,
this is not like that's not just a toy. That's a thing that you want to go out and have people like look at it and be like, oh my God, you're a crazy person to buy this thing. And it's a status symbol. Yes, the additional speed, performance, and all of that. But my own suspicion is that the majority of the people who buy these wheels will never push into even 50% of what they're capabilities
yeah, exactly, 100%.
Yeah.
No one would do that. Like 95% of the EUC riders would not push a wheel beyond 50 miles per hour.
Right, but you don't have to enjoy a Porsche, to drive fast. Like it's more like the idea, like, oh, I'm in a car made by a company that have won the last 13 Le Mans straight. So, so they're the best company, and I have it's name recognitions basically, and bringing it back to inMotion. They kind of made an interesting push for it with the V13. This was supposed to be the fastest wheel ever at the time, 2 years ago when it was introduced. And they were definitely trying to build that performance recognition.
Yeah. They tried, they went forward, and then they went backward. Like they advertised the top speed, and once you got the wheel, it was not that top speed. No, it's not safe. So why are you trying to push a wheel towards high speeds to say after it's not safe? So that's why, again, we come back to the communication about wheels. Again, they must know when they build a wheel, who is this wheel for? That's why I say in my reviews, who is this wheel for every single time? Who is this wheel for? Is it for high-speed enthusiasts? Then I must aim my communication towards high speed, but then I must know that I'm excluding people who don't like high speed. So I feel like they wanted to talk to everybody at the same time. I don't know. To be honest, I'm still speechless on why they advertised that wheel as a high-speed wheel, the fastest wheel ever, and then they went back and just said, okay, this high-speed mode is not going to happen. End of the story.
I could think of all kind of reasons, like especially with the large companies. It's not just one guy making the call. With a smaller company, with Bigot, Bigot is just
one guy.
It's just one guy. Like it's the president. He said if he wants something, it's done. But with a larger company like inMotion, they probably have a board. They probably have a bunch of share owners that have their own opinions, and they may say, "Oh, what you're doing is not the right thing." They may have different idea of what sells and what doesn't, or what should be allowed and what shouldn't. And also, this is China, so they have a very different idea culturally as to what is proper and what is not. I heard EUC is now banned on the streets. So
it's crazy.
So there's just a lot of factor that could determine why they made certain decisions. Like the fact that they got investment from an outside company may also come to be a part of it. You know, a company could say, okay, I'm gonna give you a bunch of money, but now that we are tied at the hip, I can't have you go out and do something risky because then that's going to potentially impact me as well. But on the positive side, the other reason why I think this whole outside investor thing is real is because of this rumor giant list of wheels. This is the only explanation that they got a lot more resources, and as a result, they're able to.
It's very interesting to it and very exciting to see that we have all these wheels coming up from inMotion.
Yeah, okay. Meanwhile, it's cricket at Hsiang. No. I don't know what Hsiang is doing.
Yeah, I don't know what they are doing. No, they have the S16 and S16 Pro, which are still interesting, to be honest, because they are on the lightweight wheel segment. So, and Marty has one, I think. He has the S16.
But see, this is the problem, right? When you have a new product, two-wheel reviewer, like, I think I heard of this wheel. Somebody has it. It's out there. It's somewhere. And it's something. I heard, like, that is no good. EUC company do not buy ad, they don't advertise. We are the only way for them to get the word out about a new wheel. If they have a new wheel and nobody knows about it, how do you sell wheels? I don't understand it. And in the past, this is, everyone know, like, send it out to the reviewer, let them do demos, let the people try it. You know, EUC is a visual, you have to ride a wheel to know whether or not you like it. You have to try it.
Understand it.
The fact that they're not doing any of this thing is just kind of
Yeah, I've just seen Marty's videos, which are good. I think he tested it under the rain and all these things. But besides that, there's nothing.
Yeah, I kind of don't understand it. Like, they're the one company that is lagging behind everyone else when it comes to like wheel development, marketing, and all of that, which is unfortunate because they were the first company to come up with the suspension
It's fascinating
wheel.
because Hsiang was at the top of the game, like as of like 4 years ago, 18XL, etc. And now is absent completely.
It's the evolution of wheel. Like as the market shift, like certain companies may be able to keep up or not, and it has to do with like. You know, like Veteran is a tiny company, but they were able to do well because they have an overall strategy where they just built a single wheel. Like every year, they just come up with a model and then they sell that model and then that's it.
And that's good enough, to be honest.
Right. And they focus all their attention on the development of this wheel as compared to everyone else who usually have multiple wheels. And they
because like even for inMotion or Bigot with that wheel flood of wheels, they don't give you enough time to like the wheel. They announce this new wheel, and then, maybe I like it. It takes you a few weeks to decide if you want to invest in that wheel, buy that wheel. You look at video and stuff. And then, next thing you know, there's already an upgrade or another wheel that looks like the same. So you're like, finally, I'm not gonna be interested in that wheel. They don't give you enough time to like the wheel, basically. So versus Slipper Kim, who gives you like the pattern, 16-inch tire wheel pattern, boom. And then 6 months, 8 months later, the pattern, the links, and then, now that's the upgrade of my pattern. So you are seeing all the pattern buyers selling their pattern to get a links. That's what you're seeing online. And this is a smart move. It's very smart. Space out your release between like 6 to 7 months, and people will upgrade. But if you flood the market with every sort of wheel you can think of, I don't know, you're like, okay, another Bigot wheel, and now soon another inMotion wheel, maybe. I don't know. I'm just speculating, but.
But I think they have a very different market, right? Like inMotion is its own animal as compared to Bigot. Like Bigot, I definitely agree with you. Whenever they release a newer version of a wheel that they just released 6 months ago, it's always painful because somebody paid a lot of money for that wheel, and 6 months later, or even less, it's outdated. But this is also partly because Bigot target a much smaller slice of hardcore enthusiasts. So it's a smaller market, and so people get burned a lot, a little bit more.
Do you think they feel like, it's not selling, let me release a new version? Or do you feel like it's just in their DNA to say, okay, we designed this wheel, I want to design another wheel like right now. I feel like I must be present on the market with a new product. I don't really know which one it is. You know, is this wheel not selling? That's why they are releasing, like for example, okay, maybe for the Master it was technical driven, like for example, VR, V1, V2, V3, V4, etc. But do you feel like they don't take the time to release a wheel? That's why they have so many versions. The wheel doesn't sell, so they want to upgrade that wheel to make it sell more. I don't really understand what drives Bigod to release so many wheels in the past.
I think it's just a guy who's experimenting. He has a giant shop. He's like, if I, put this 3600 watt hour, 134 volt pack, and then I put this frame around it, and then I, add this controller, how does that work? And he like puts it together, tries it out, and say, oh, this is not bad. Or he may put something else together and just like, no, this is nasty. I can't ride this. And then like ideal scenario, you do this again and again and again, you come up with like, a few wheels that work, and then you narrow it down further and just say, okay, that, will really work very well for a race wheel, and that would really work well for an out.
But meanwhile, you're selling every iteration of the wheel you're designing.
Yes.
So it's a market release every single time. It's not a small thing. It's not a beta testing.
Like Bigod, this is, I was saying this is the greatest thing that Bigod, if they can ever do. If they can come out with a modular wheel design, and they're already close to it.
Yeah.
They're already really close to it. They have similar battery pack, they have similar controller, they have all these parts that at the factory is interchangeable. Yeah. But imagine if you can go on like the Bigod website and you say, oh, I want, this is the 3 different kind of suspension you can go with. And then I want, style B of the battery pack. Have it either long or you can have it a little bit wider. And then what kind of controller you want. Here's a controller.
But they're already doing that with like Archie, for example, is getting his own wheel with these guys.
They can do that, but
But you have to order a minimum number of units for them to do that for you. It's not like a one-off.
It's not a one-off. But if they can like ever kind of get to that point, I think people would love it, because then they can customize, because they're already targeting the enthusiast EUC rider who care about little things like kind of trolley that is paired to a wheel and this and that.
Yeah.
So if they have that option, it would be. I think people will love it. But I don't know how that can actually work. They produce things in quantities, and
the logistic
resell,
would be crazy.
The logistic would be really difficult to do. All right, we completely got sidetracked once again. But let's move on to our last segment, which is what I would call the crash of the week. And this week we actually have 2, and I'm gonna run them. This is a very quick one. Someone posted this. I think this is in Russia. By the look of it.
Yeah. What is he doing?
I don't know. He's telling the guy that he messed up his tail light.
Yeah, put it again. Oh my! Oh, he broke the car.
He broke the tail light.
Oh my God.
I don't know what he was. This looked like someone who's kind of new, right?
Yeah.
He looks like he's pretty new with. Oh my God! He completely dented the rear bumper. Well, I mean, the car is not even moving, so you can't really blame anyone else if you hit a stationary object, so it's all on you.
Let's check the next one. So this one was in New York, right?
I think so.
Commander Pro. Oh my God.
So if you've never seen a cutout, this is what a cutout usually
textbook
looks
cutout.
like. Yeah, this is a textbook cutout. So the wheel loses power. You push it so much, the voltage gets so high that controller deem it non-recoverable. So it shuts the whole thing down so that the battery doesn't blow up. Unfortunately, it does this while you are probably going at the maximum speed, leaning fully into it, which means that when the wheel power down, you face plant right into the road.
Painful.
Usually the wheel get in front of the person.
Yeah,
I think he twisted it, turned a little bit, so it was like with him. The few other instances of cutout I seen, like the wheel would just start to roll and then get ahead of you, the riders usually just splay out and then they slide on the road, so they stop sooner than the wheel. This is also like, modern wheels is able to handle this kind of crash a
way
little bit
better than previous wheel, but
yeah,
it
like,
still got quite destroyed.
But like before, old school, when we used to have like the plastic shells, you're done.
Yeah, you're
like,
done.
You're going out to pick up battery pack. They just go spread across the road,
Like that
and then you can
Cutout tunnel crash.
Yes, exactly. Like the battery pack come flying out, and then because the battery pack impacted, like you can't use those pack no more.
Literally yesterday, someone told me no one cuts out in the Cutout tunnel. Why is it called Cutout tunnel? So I had to send that Cutout tunnel crash so that he understands why is this thing called like that.
The instance of Cutout did decrease significantly from what I could tell.
Of course.
The latest gen, well, not even the latest, like starting the past 2 years, I feel like.
Since the Master.
Yeah, since
basically.
the Master with a higher voltage, they can go as fast as people are comfortable doing. So I don't really kind of hear about this as much.
Yeah, but in the Cutout tunnel, it was very easy to go 40 miles per hour. 42 and then cut out basically. Versus like if you had a Master, 42 miles per hour is like nothing, you know, it's just...
It's also like has to do with where you're doing this, because this is open road, and I can see this is out in the suburbs somewhere.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of things, there's not a lot of feature, and the road is, you know, straight and very smooth. So this kind of location, similar to the Cutout tunnel, because you don't get the perception of speed as much. So people tend to accelerate more because they didn't recognize how fast
you get
they were
excited and
going.
then,
Right, and then especially in a group ride and you're trying to race somebody, especially never race David Jensen. Never do it. Because he is 4'6" and weighs about 80 pounds. So you cannot beat him. Even if you're on a more powerful wheel. He has a wind profile of a wasabi piece. So he's always going to be faster. So on a group ride, people start to kind of race each other. That's also a sure way to get to a Cutout. Very dangerous. Be mindful of that whenever you're on a fast group ride like this. But this is like a classic example. All right, that's it for Crash of the Week segment, and that brings us to the end of this show. I hope it's enjoyable to you and to you.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you again for having me.
Sure. So until next time, thank you all.
See you.
Well, second session in, I hope the format is a bit more organized and interesting to watch, but I'm sure we'll continue to experiment, so let me know what you think in the comment section below. Shout out to my supporter on Patreon. Please check out the link in the video description below if you enjoy and like to support my work. And as always, as much as we all love electric unicycle, the only way for us to get better wheel is to grow as a community. So teach your friend how to ride and get them hooked. Until the next video, thank you.